Well, good evening, Brian. Welcome to Zoom meeting number 11, held under the auspices of the Lodge Hope of Karachi, numbering 337. It's a delight to be back with you and share a Tuesday evening with you. As you're all aware, we do have certain guidance under the Grand Lodge of Scotland, and that can I ask that you keep your video on so we can see who you are. Going forward, we will be having some presentations on a Thursday evening from the History and Heritage Group of the Grand Lodge of Scotland. And I know that one of the things that they want to do to ensure they know who is there, that they'll be asking everyone to rename themselves as Gordon McGhee, Lodge Hope of Karachi 337. So some of you already do that, but I think those who are coming in under Bob's iPad and things like that, they won't be looking to admit for security reasons, Brian. So just as a wee word of warning, and I'll talk about the History and Heritage Group's presentation later on. Can I ask you always to keep on mute? Please also sign the virtual tile on the Lodge Hope of Karachi Facebook pages. And we, as normal, we will have a question and answer session with our speaker towards the end of the meeting. If you do have any questions, Brian, can you please put them into the chat? And I'll either ask the question myself as moderator, or I will unmute you and ask you to pose the question directly to this evening's speaker. Talking about this evening's speaker, Brian, I think he actually needs no introduction. I think he's known to each and every one of us. I'm privileged to know Ramsay in a variety of guises. With my day job hat on, he's one of my volunteers, and he does a fantastic job for the Poppy Appeal up in the Black Isle and has done so for many years. But from a Freemasonry point of view, I think most of us got to know him first of all as the Grand Director of Ceremonies, with that booming voice that he had, and how he controlled all the various celebrations and commemorations around the country. And we all now know him as our most worshipful Grand Master Mason, Brother William Ramsay McGhee. So Ramsay, I'm going to hand over to you now, sir. You have got the ability to now share your screen.
Thanks very much, Gordon, and good evening, everybody. It's an absolute joy, privilege and pleasure to be with you, and I would thank Gordon for his invitation to speak to you tonight. Tonight might be a wee bit different to what you're used to. It's not anything in the way of academia tonight. Basically, what I would like to do is tell you a wee story about how Freemasonry has helped in a very practical way over quite a number of years now over in Malawi. So if I hit this and hit that, hopefully we will be able to get going with this.
Yeah, that's there, Ramsay.
Yeah. Just hit that one, and that's us. We're up and running. Well, brethren, this whole story started back in 2008. At the time, I was Provincial Grand Master in Ross and Cromarty. And it happened very, very simply. Because Ian Fraser asked me one night, just out of the blue, would I be willing to take a deputation from Ross and Cromarty over to Malawi to install the Master of Lodge, David Livingston. And I said I would be delighted. It would be something different. And we put together a team. I think there was 16, if my memory serves me correct. And we went out to Malawi to install the Master of David Livingston. But there was a wee sting in the tail, because we were asked as we left, or a bit before we left, if we would raise some money to assist the Mountain View School for Deaf Children, situated just to the south of Blantyre in Malawi. Well, we knew not a lot about the school for deaf children, but we said that we would raise some money, and that's what we did. And off we went. And over the years, we've been very, very privileged indeed, not only to get to know the school, the teachers, and some of the pupils, but we've been very, very fortunate in being able to understand the way of life in Malawi, which is quite significantly different to the way of life that we know. We've come to understand their customs. We've been privileged to see the wildlife in the country and learn something of the heritage and the culture of Malawi, as well as helping the children. So if I can just paint a broader picture for you before we head in towards the school. The pictures that you see on the screen now are from Lake Malawi. And Lake Malawi is known as the Calendar Lake, simply because in length it's 365 miles, in breadth it's 52. So you've got the weeks of the year and the days of the year. And probably one of the biggest industries on the lake is fishing. But as you can see there, the boats, the fishing boats, are somewhat different from the boats that we are used to seeing leaving the fishing ports of Scotland. And it's a very hard life they have, and in many parts of the lake, the fish has literally been fished out. We've visited various places in and around Malawi. This is the St. Michael and All Angels Church, which is actually, it's been built on the site that the first Scottish mission was built way back in the days of David Livingstone. Very beautiful church, and we've been privileged to attend services there on a couple of occasions. We've been to see the mausoleum of President Hastings Banda, a man that you either love or you either hate. He's no middle ground, really. It's quite fascinating listening to some of the Malawians as to whether they are with or not with him. We've visited rose farms throughout Malawi. There's some criticism of these rose farms that it's cheap labour, etc. But I tend not to agree, because when we've been there and visited the rose farms, they are a tremendous source of employment. They're run mainly by the Dutch, and quite a lot of the Dutchmen who are involved there are members of various lodges in and around Malawi. Some folk who criticise, and I can understand why they criticise when they hear what wages are being paid. But I'll tell you later on this evening the wage that we pay one of the instructors at the school. And you're probably quite shocked at what we pay back. It is a good wage in average in Malawi. So we've visited rose farms, we've relaxed on the beach at the lakeside. We've been out on Lake Shire, which is quite an adventure. It gives you the opportunity to see the wildlife firsthand, not in zoos or wildlife parks, but in their natural environment. And it's quite enlightening to see, well, some of them it's not very enlightening, but it's by and large, enlightening to see these animals in and around their own territory. Masonically, while we've been there, we've been privileged to do quite a bit over the years. We've installed the master and office bearers in Lodge David Livingstone, Lodge Vipia. We've rededicated Lodge Vipia to celebrate their 50th anniversary. And on 2 occasions now, I've been absolutely delighted to be given the privilege of installing Brother Gordon Shippard as the Grand Superintendent of our superintendency there in Malawi. This is the team that came out with me, not the first time, but this was the 2011 visit when we went out to do quite a bit in Malawi, as well as visit the school. Lodge Ngoni, it's based in Lilongwe, which is about a 4 or 5 hour drive from Blantyre northwards, but it's our only Scottish lodge up in that area. The other Scottish lodges are all based around Blantyre. Of course, the main purpose behind all of our visits out to Malawi is to help in any way we can the children in the Mountain View School for deaf children. And I have to say, brethren, that the children in the school, and when I was there earlier this year, there's 150 children at the moment, all ranging in age from about 3 or 4 years of age up to 18, 19 years of age. On here, you'll see 3 arrows. The arrow up at the top, that shows you where the Church of Scotland have most of their activity, right up north at Equindeni. In the middle, we have Lilongwe, which is where the main airport for Malawi is, and down just south of Blantyre there, where the 3rd arrow is where the school for deaf children is. Very often we arrive there in Lilongwe, and we're faced then with a 4 or 5 hour drive from Lilongwe down through Monkey Bay, Zomba, down to Blantyre. So that's the country is long and narrow. To go from Lilongwe up to Equindeni is just a wee bit longer than it is to drive down to Blantyre. That is a typical village that you'll come across, brethren. Mud huts. The huts are actually built with mud bricks that they make themselves, and the roofs are made from maize straw. Those resettlements are very vulnerable, as you will see later on in the presentation, and when you do get heavy rains and flooding, then I'm afraid the mud bricks simply dissolve in places. But that is a very typical village that you'll see anywhere on the road between Lilongwe and Blantyre. This is the main road between the two cities. Transport is a bit older than we're used to here. Many people use bicycles. Bicycles are very, very common. But you'll see on the right-hand side of the picture there as you look, quite a lot of children, all barefoot, and those children are actually walking to school. They think absolutely nothing of walking 5, 10 kilometres to get to school every day and 5 or 10 kilometres to walk back. They are very, very keen to receive the education. Transport varies throughout Malawi. This is quite a common sight, the mule and cart. And this is also a very common sight, a bicycle taxi. I think the driver of that one was quite relieved when he passed by the 4 of us. When you see the size of the woman in the back and the size of any of us, it was quite a relief to him. Here's your Marks and Spencer's Malawi style. This is very typical of a street market, and you find them all over the country. And to this day, very many of the Malawians, money does not change hands, but they simply barter for the goods that they are looking for. So you come down that road all the way down and you arrive at the Mountain View School for Deaf Children. At the school, they are taught the normal subjects of reading, writing, numeracy. They're also taught sign language, which is excellent while they're at school, but unfortunately when they go back to their villages, then the sign language is not of great use because no one can understand it. But probably more importantly, while they get taught to read, write and to count, the life skills that they're taught are probably more apt for them. It's very difficult for us to understand, but in countries like Malawi, where children are born and there's any sign or any form of deformity, in general terms, that child is left to die. And it's something that we find incredibly difficult, but that is the reality. Of course, with deafness, the deafness is not found until the children are that bit older. And even then, some of them are just literally abandoned. And that's why schools like Mountain View have been formed so that those deaf children get a bit of support in their early days. All the children are taught how to sew. They make very basic garments, but the staff there are very, very good with them. They've got the patience of a saint. And you'll notice that the sewing machines all come from Clydebank. They're all Singer sewing machines. And if you look down at the bottom, you'll see that they're all the old treadle type, because electricity in Malawi is not very reliable. You might have electricity today, you might not have it tomorrow, you might have it this morning, you might not have it this afternoon. So all the machines they have there are the old treadle ones. But both the boys and the girls are taught how to sew. Now you'll see one or two of the youngsters there with what looks like a sort of hearing aid in the ear. A few of them have residual hearing, but the hearing aids that they've got are so old-fashioned that we were unable to find anywhere batteries that we could take out so that they could use them. And when I was out this year, I quite honestly didn't see any of the children who have residual hearing. The vast majority of the children are totally deaf. Very often this is brought about by virtue of the fact that they have AIDS. They've received AIDS through their parents. Many of them, their parents have died very often of AIDS. Probably about 70% of the pupils in the school are orphans. And as I say, many of them themselves have AIDS. So we are faced with a school, 150 youngsters in the school, none of whom have any hearing at all. This is where we really started to get involved. This was the very first time we went to school in 2008. And we went into the woodwork class and it was a shambles, not to put too fine a point on it. And two of the brethren that we had with us, they were both joiners, and just without any urging, they just, and you can see in the foreground there, Angus Ross, just lifting a plane to show the girl how to use the plane. The girl to his left, with a white top on, with her back to the camera. She had a hammerhead in her hand. There was no shaft in the hammer, and she was battering the living daylights out a nail, trying to get it into a piece of wood. None of the teachers had any experience in woodwork. And just over on the left-hand side, you'll see a wee stool up on one of the benches. That's the kind of thing that they were trying to make, those wee footstools. And they wanted to try and sell them in those local markets that we saw earlier on. But to be perfectly blunt, it was going to be a very difficult job buying them. They weren't of great quality at all. So that night we had a wee discussion, and we decided there and then that we would buy tools for the school. And probably one of the worst decisions I ever took in my life as far as the school's concerned. And at the time I thought it was quite a good idea that we would buy the tools locally in Malawi, thereby putting quite a bit of money into the local economy. Well, we agreed that night that we would spend £1,000 in tools, and that's exactly what we did. But unfortunately, those tools that we were able to get in Malawi, the bulk of them came from either China or India. And the tools, to be perfectly honest with you, were really pretty poor. And by the time we went back in 2011, 3 years later, only one set of the tools was worth anything at all. The rest of them had basically disintegrated. But the good news was that the footstools that they were making when we went back in 2011 were a tremendous improvement on what we had seen 3 years earlier. But not only were they making those footstools, they had also started to make a range of garden furniture. And that was because we decided at the same time that we bought the tools that there was no point really in buying the tools if we didn't have someone in the school who could teach the children how to use the tools properly. So we agreed with the school that we would fund a teacher, a woodwork teacher, to teach the children how to use the tools and how to make bits and pieces that would be of greater use. And to this day, the province of Ross and Cromarty still pay the wages of the woodwork teacher. And I'll say more about them just in a wee minute or two. So that's some of the furniture that they were making when we were back there in 2011. A tremendous improvement. We were all delighted with the changes that had been made. However, we had a problem. How do we resolve this problem with the tools? Because the tools that we could buy there had proved to be absolutely useless. So when we came back, we made two appeals. We had an appeal locally in the province of Ross and Cromarty, along with an appeal in your own province in Fife and Kinross. And between those two appeals, we were able to get together 18 crates of tools, not to mention 3 sets of Wraith Rovers football strips. So here we are, Freemasonry at its best. This is some of the Fife boys with our current provincial Grand Master, with some of the tools that they brought up from Fife to put in along with the tools that we had gathered here in Ross and Cromarty. We spent many days sorting them all out, repairing some of them, just making sure that they were all workable, and we got them packed up and ready to go off to Malawi. And that was the next challenge. We had a terrible job getting stuff out there. And of course, corruption in Malawi is unbelievable. However, we came across a group called the Raven Trust, and they very kindly offered to take the tools over to Malawi for us. I should say that the very first time that we were over in 2008, we get DHL to take 1 tool chest out for us. And that cost us somewhere in the region of £600. So here we were, we had in 2 separate lots, 9 big boxes of tools to get transported out there. So it was with some trepidation that we asked the Raven Trust how much it would cost. And they sort of replied, well, would £150 be all right? Well, we were absolutely over the moon. And we actually gave them £300 to get the tools from Scotland out to Malawi. And this was them arriving in Ekwindeni. So that was the next wee problem that we had. The tools were right away up at the north there where the first arrow is at Ekwindeni. And we really needed them away down where the bottom arrow is, just south of Blantyre. Well, Gordon Shipper, the Grand Superintendent in Malawi, he managed to come to our rescue. And one of the brethren in Lodge Ngoni in Lilongwe, he has a transport company. And he was going up Ekwindeni Way, and after they offloaded, they went to Ekwindeni, picked up the tools, and they transported them all the way from Ekwindeni down to Blantyre. And this was the type of tools that we had. Great standard. They were good, solid tools that our brethren here in Fife and in Russia had donated to the cause. And they started to really look after the tools. They had them all categorized, etc. And when we went back in 2015, this was the woodwork class. Now, when you compare that to what we had the first time we went there in 2008, you can see how clean the place is. And not only that, this is the type of furniture that they were now making, thanks to the wee instructor that we employ out there. If I can come away from the woodwork just for a minute, one of the other projects that we got involved in out there was the chickens. Now, at that time in 2008, they had 600 chickens, but they tried to explain to us that they really needed 900 chickens to keep the whole thing revolving the way it should. So we decided that we would help out there, and we built this new chicken house for them so that they could actually have their 900 chickens, and we provided the extra 300. And that was absolutely great, because it meant that they could have a continuous supply of chickens, which gave the children at least 2 meals a week of chicken away from the maize that they normally get. And some of the hens were kept, they were layers, so they were getting fresh eggs, and some of the surplus they sold at the market to bring some income into the school. They had a small herd of cows. When we went out there the first time, they had 4 cows in the herd, and those older boys, it was they who were tasked to look after the cows. And again, they needed an extra cow, so we had one of them artificially inseminated. Not that we did it, we paid for it and we got somebody to do it for us, but it gave them that 5th cow in the herd, which again gives them fresh milk in the school on a day-by-day basis. Likewise, when we're there, they usually try to entertain us with some traditional music, and this is one of the pupils who is dressed for the occasion. Now, this boy is totally deaf. He's no hearing at all, but he is the kingpin, because he plays the drum there, and that drum is on the ground. And the vibration from the drum goes along the floor, and the girls dance to the vibration coming along the floor. And they are absolutely unbelievable. Their dancing skills are tremendous, given that they can't hear a thing, that they pick up that beat from the drum and they dance to the beat through the floor. This is some of the football strips that we took over with us. They were basically meant for the boys, for the football team, but the girls' netball team had been very successful, so they decided that the strips looked better on them, and they claimed them in the first instance. We've even got them going to Fidelity for us with the shirts on. So they were over the moon at getting the football strips. And just sitting across from me here at the moment, I've got another 2 sets of strips from Clachnacudden Football Club that will fit the smaller kids, and they will be going out pretty soon, hopefully. We take with us medical supplies because they cannot get medical supplies at all out in Malawi. And when I talk about medical supplies, very basic things that you and I can buy across the counter in Boots or Tesco or wherever, but they just can't get them at all. So they're delighted when we take that kind of stuff with us. We try to cater for everybody, and some of the younger ones here you can see with the cuddly toys, and this was a lady who was in one of the nursing homes here in the Black Isle. I used to tell her all about Malawi and the children, and she knitted all those wee toys for them. And I was delighted that we got this photograph just about 2 weeks before she died, and she was able to see the kids really enjoying her handiwork. So we try and cater for them all. When we were out in 2015, it had been just absolutely horrendous. You probably heard about it in the news. Those give you, those are just some of the scenes that the Malawians suffered. Nearly 250,000 were forced to flee their homes. As far as the school was concerned, well, this is the road into the school. And for five weeks, nobody could get to the school or get out of the school. And that had serious consequences. The only food that was available over those 5 weeks were the chickens. So the 900 chickens were used up over that period. The families of the children obviously were hit very, very hard. So there was no income coming from the families. And the electrical supply at the school was one of the things that really concerned us. They had a three-phase supply going into school, but it was only partially available, and there was all sorts of danger with it. And we thought, right, we really need to get something done with this. So they had no electricity, no pump, no water, and it was getting to the stage where we were really concerned that a lot of the children were going to die. So we were asked to help get a new pump. And when we asked what it was going to cost, it was about £6,500. And we just didn't know where the hell we were going to get £6,500. So Ross County Football Club very kindly gave us the use of the Victoria Suite, and we held a race night there. And we had all sorts of other bits and pieces. But by this time, we had been in discussion with them, or with Gordon Shepherd, and he had come up, one of the boys in the lodge at Lodge Angoni, he is an engineer who deals in solar panels. And he asked the question, why were we spending all this money to repair an old-fashioned pump? Why are we not using solar energy? And we thought, well, that sounds good, but it'll probably be twice the cost. But no, he reckoned that he could have the whole thing up and running for just under £5,000. So we set to, and on the night of the race night, at the end of the night, we were counting up all the bits and pieces that we had, the raffle, the roll, the pound, and all the rest of it. And we arrived at just under £5,000, just exactly the amount it needed to get this solar pump. So we phoned there and then, and that's Gordon Shepherd, the superintendent over there, standing beside the ladder, and we were able to get that rigged up. And of course, the big bonus with that is that they've got no electricity charges. So the school, since 2015, have been getting the water from the bore pump thanks to the solar panel. And that now means that with the water pump working, that all the plants they've got, because the kids do plant vegetables, etc., the plants have come back to life. They've got drinking water, they've got water to wash with, they've got toilet facilities. So it was an absolute saviour, because there was a real danger that we were going to lose many of the children through disease. When we went back out in July 17, we had a meeting with Mrs. Modester Gier, the headmistress. That's her there with the checked dress on. She is an angel. She's unbelievable. And when we sat down, asked what the problems were, and the first thing she said, well, and she was in tears, she said, we're running out of food for the children. We've no food. The mattresses that the children sleep in are over 21 years of age. They're running out of blankets. There's only one computer in the school. When the children are doing their exams, the teachers have to write out the questions, and we've got no transport. So there and then we had a wee site meeting. We knew that we had funding in the province, so we made contact there and then with the provincial Grand Master. And while we were in Malawi, he sent out, or arranged to have sent out, the sum of £4,000. And thanks to that, we were able to buy maize, mattresses, all the bits and pieces that were needed. Now, I mentioned earlier the wage for the woodwork teacher. Well, we normally pay him around about 250,000 kwacha, which is about £750 per annum. But that is, believe it or not, a very healthy wage for someone in Malawi. So here you see the kids, great excitement. This is the maize arriving at the school. That was it, all packed up. And you know, it was quite heartening because I was officiating at a meeting the following night, and the Irish brethren were there. And the Irish the provincial secretary from Ireland asked me what we had done in order to protect the maize. And I honestly didn't know what he was talking about. And he said, well, if you leave it as it is, it will be infested with weevils. And I said, well, what do we do? He says, you do nothing, because you have brought the maize into the school. We, in the Irish Constitution, we will make sure that the protection is put in place. So there, right then, we had not only 2 or 3 lodges working together, but we had 2 constitutions working together. A couple of days later, the mattresses arrived, and that generated great excitement. You can imagine yourselves what state the mattresses were in after 21 years. So this was just manna from heaven for them, and they were over the moon. Wee things matter a lot. And this is my wife putting wee wristbands on them. And they just love these wee trinkets and things. And they were all over the place with their wee trinkets. And the ones at the back, the boys, they were not terribly happy that they didn't get one. But what we do take out is balls, footballs, rugby balls, netballs, and we leave those with them, because normally they would be using balls that they had basically made out of plastic bags and things. So they're just delighted when we go out and we take the proper thing with us. This is just a few photos to let you see the pupils, how they're concentrating on what they do in the woodwork, and the difference that it's made having the proper tools, having a proper instructor. This is him. He is an he's a wee gem of a man. And again, you know, I would remind you, brethren, that he's dealing with these youngsters, all of whom are totally deaf. So he's got to do a lot of his instruction by signage. But he's a gem of a man, absolute gem of a man. And he ensures everything is done properly. This is another selection of the stuff that they're now making. Personally, I think it's an absolute dream, considering what they were doing in 2008. And all the shaping of the wood there that you see, it's not done by machine, it's shaped by hand. And when I was out earlier this year, they're now taking it a stage further, and they're now using fabrics and things to cover some of the chairs and seats. So it's a real treat for us to see the progress that's been made. The other area that was causing them problems were computers. And we did a wee bit on the computers, but somebody known to many of you, Robert McGhee, past Deputy Provincial Grand Master in Renfrewshire East, he goes out there, I think it's twice a year, through his work. And Robert has continued the work that we've done with the computers, so that they've now got a computer laboratory, as they call it, at the school. And that has made a tremendous difference. This is just a wee snippet from a letter that we got from Gordon Shippard, just a wee quote to the brethren here in Ross and Cromarty, to say, you see what you've done, absolutely magnificent. It's all happening at Mountain View School, and what a pleasure to be part of it. You and your brethren should be proud. Well, brethren, we have done a lot. I've tried to do a lot. We've over the years, got a tremendous bond between ourselves and the school. There are still problems. Printer problems are massive. Transport problems are massive. But these are things that we will tackle in days to come. Brethren, there is still much work to be done at Mountain View School for deaf children. We in this province will continue to support the school, and we will continue to support the local brethren involved in Scottish Freemasonry. And for their sake, we will try and continue to make dreams real. Thank you, brother.
Most Worshipful Grandmaster Mason, Brother Ramsay McGhee, thank you so much for coming along this evening and addressing the Lodge Hope of Karachi and our various visitors this evening. I'm just going to try and take the screen back. I'm sure we will have many questions, but also many plaudits for the work that you've started in the province of Ross and Cromarty have started. And I know that during past Provincial Grandmaster Andrew Parsons' time, the Brennan and Fife and Kinross really got behind everything that you were doing to support that, and we made numerous trips, albeit I'm not sure that the Reef Rovers tops were the right tops to give to young children and bring them up in that way. However, so, Brennan, do we have any questions for the Grandmaster Mason?
If I may come in with possibly one of the first questions. Jim Beveridge, past master of Lodge Oak 877. When the Grandmaster Mason went out to Malawi, did we ever think about taking a British Sign Language interpreter with him?
Sorry, what was that, Gordon? A British what?
British Sign Language interpreter.
Right. No, we didn't. And the answer to that is quite simple. The sign language that you use is in Swahili. So a British sign person wouldn't be...
Sorry, I was under the impression that the main sign language in Malawi was taught in English.
They are taught English as well, but the basic language is Swahili. And
right, okay.
That's what the sign language is in, Bob. The staff at... Oh, yeah, we are now. That's better.
Yeah, sorry, I was... You're listening to the top of my head there.
The staff are very good. And we are taught wee bits of sign language. I don't know if you can see it, but things like this.
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Which are good morning, boys and girls. And there's all sorts of wee bits in Swahili that we get to know. Right. That's why we don't take anybody with us from the British Sign Language, because they're taught in Swahili.
Okay. Thank you, Ramsay. Thank you, Jim. Another question on the chat for you, Ramsay. What stops Torags from stealing this stuff?
That is an excellent question, because it is a real problem. And we've had to take measures at the school to, well, first of all, some of the early tools that we put in, once the local villagers got to know that they were there was a few raids in the school to try and steal the tools. So we have over the years made various changes to the layout, etc., so that the tools, etc., are as sound as we can possibly make them. And likewise, we've put in quite a number of security elements to the computer laboratory, again, to make sure that that is secure. But it's a very pertinent question, because the theft and the corruption in the country is unbelievable.
Thank you. Most Worshipful Grandmaster Mason, do you know how things are at the school currently with the COVID pandemic, as HIV does compromise the immune system? And that's from Duggiff Island.
Yeah, we are pretty concerned. I was at the school in February, just as COVID was beginning to manifest itself. Many of the children have been sent back to their villages, and they've tried to run the school down as much as they can. But many of the children are orphans. Therefore, a few of the staff have stayed on, and quite a number of the children are in basic isolation in the school. And the staff are trying their level best to look after them. Gordon Shepherd gives me regular updates, and the brethren in our lodges in Blantyre, they do visit the school regularly just to make sure that everything is as it should be. And to the best of my knowledge at the moment, none of the children have died as a result of COVID, but many of them are away back into their villages. So we don't know how they're managing to cope at all. But the ones that are at the school are doing okay.
Well, I think that's good to know, and I think it puts what we're facing in some sort of perspective, that we've got the National Health Service around us to support us. A comment and a question from Charles Winston for you, Ramsay. The comment, wonderful effort. And the question, what are the security, political and medical issues associated with a trip to Malawi?
Well, security is not too bad, to be perfectly honest with you. We don't really have any real serious problems with security, other than the fact that there is so much corruption in the country. When we, I think it was the 2011 trip, I had asked at the church if anybody at the church would be happy to give me over-the-counter medicines, etc., that we could take with us. And we had a big case full of them. And by the time we got to school, half of them were missing. And we reckon it was at the airport where they disappeared. So there is an issue of security at the airports. That's the worst part, to be quite honest with you. Other than that, it's an area where there is malaria, so we've got to take the anti-malaria tablets, which we do. And other than that, we've really had no great problem. We just go, we get on with it, and we've always come back in one piece, and hopefully that will continue.
I'm sure it will, Ramsay. Another comment, first class project, and the question associated with that comment for you, Ramsay. What happens when the students leave the school? Are they tracked for their progress?
Right, good point. I honestly can't tell you whether there's a tracking for all of them or not, but what we do know that is a result of the joinery project that we've been involved in. Wasn't this year, it was when we were out in 2017. Modester was getting quite excited by the fact that two of the older pupils had actually been offered an apprenticeship because of the skills that they'd picked up at the school. And when I was out this year, she was telling me that one of the boys had actually started up on his own and was doing exceedingly well for himself as a carpenter. It's pretty sad, but I think the bulk of his work was making coffins. But he was doing well for himself, and it was because of the skills that he'd picked up over the years at the school through the project that we've been working on. Okay,
thank you, Ramsay. An offer of support next, and what I'll do, I'll connect you and Stuart Saunders. I know you know each other already.
I know Stuart, yeah.
Yeah, but Stuart's saying that Stuart works for the Dance Federation, and the Federation has a department which specialises in deaf and blind. So I'll tie you two up afterwards to see if there's anything that can come from that.
Yeah, I know Stuart fine, yeah.
Ian Gunning says, thanks Ramsay for that excellent talk. My wife is involved in a project in Ekwindini and has been involved
up north,
and has been involved previously in a group under the Church of Scotland, but is now on her own. And from Ken Wallace, a question: could Ramsay please go over how the original contact was made with the school?
Yeah, basically through our Grand Superintendent out there. His daughter is a teacher, and when Gordon was discussing before we went out the first time, it had been agreed that we were going to go out to do the installation, etc., and that we would support the charity. And when we asked what charity, Gordon had one or two in mind, but he spoke with his daughter, and his daughter was of a mind that the school for deaf children was one which really needed a lot of support at that particular time. And that's basically why we left it to them to decide what charity we would support. And as it turned out, it was the Mountain View School for Deaf Children. And we've enjoyed a tremendous relationship with them for the past 12 years now. And our current provincial Grand Master is very supportive of the project, and he is continuing it at the moment. I mean, part of the reason I spoke about this tonight, basically, when Gordon asked me to speak, was to try and illustrate that, you know, if lodges are looking for something, or provinces are looking for something to do, there are, ever so many of these kind of projects out there where folk are really needing assistance. So it's just hopefully what I've told you tonight will illustrate that, you know, it's quite possible to do these things. You know, we're a wee Highland province up in Rossshire, and we've managed to sustain that for 12 years now. And if any of you have any aspirations to do things along those lines, there are ever so many. If you contact the superintendent or the district grand master of any of the areas, they will be more than happy to guide you in that respect. I mean, at the end of the day, it could have been any charity, I suppose. But through Gordon's perseverance, it was the School for Deaf Children. And that's where we've been. And hopefully, you know, the story will help to motivate others to do much the same. I should say that there's been a kind of unexpected side to this as well, from the Masonic perspective. I am asked to do this presentation quite regularly to non-Masonic bodies, such as Probus clubs, Rotary clubs, women's guilds, women's rural, all sorts of organisations. And I give it I've actually reduced the one tonight, the other one's got a bit more in it. But I certainly don't detract from the Masonic side. I make it abundantly clear what we're doing as Masons. And, you know, the comment is always made at the end. You know, we didn't realise that the Masons do these things. And, you know, this has proved to be a tremendous tool for us to publicise what we as Freemasons do. So that, you know, there's been other side benefits to the thing as well. Quite often we get the criticism, it's all very well doing that in Malawi, but what about all the problems at home in Scotland? And we accept and appreciate that there are. And every lodge in our province is actively involved in raising money or assisting in any way they can in all sorts of local projects. So we've got the local projects, but we've got this at the back of our minds all the time, just working away with the kids in Malawi. I'm at the stage just now where we've got quite a lot of tools. Brother Alec Craig from Inverness, he and I are trying to get those tools sorted out just now. We're just about ready to get them packed and get them off. There's some tools that we received that it's a waste of time putting them out because they're electrical. So what we did, we took them to the Dingwall Mart and we sold them at the Dingwall Mart, and we've raised about £300 through that particular avenue. And that £300 will help to pay for the cost of getting the tools out to Malawi. So I hope, if nothing else, that this wee story from Rossshire will maybe give you a wee bit of incentive to just go out and do what you have to do. It's good Freemasonry at work.
Yeah, it's a fantastic story all round, Ramsay. A couple other questions for you, and two associated comments. So the first comment, a very interesting fact with sign language, is that there's different throughout the world. There is no universal sign language. And then a comment, Makaton might be a more useful sign language. The question associated around those two comments, what employment prospects do the kids have on leaving school? And I know that you just touched on a couple of them going on to become carpenters and joiners. But
yeah, the employment prospects are pretty poor in Malawi in general terms, whether you've got all your faculties or not. But the fact that the kids are taught animal husbandry, they're taught joinery, they're taught sewing, etc., etc. They've now got a wee herd of goats that they look after as well. All of those skills enable them to be taken back into the communities because they have those skills. Whereas if they didn't, and they're deaf, as I said at the outset, they would just be left to their own devices. And as youngsters, they would probably have died in any case. So the fact that they're getting this education, and the really good news is that academically, quite a lot of them are doing really well now, and that they're going on to mainstream education. And that's very, very encouraging. But employment prospects in the rural areas, especially in Malawi, are pretty grim. In the built-up areas like the Longway and Blantyre, to be quite honest with you, they're not much different from any other major town or city. You'll see folk wandering about with their mobile phones. You've got office blocks. You've got all the things that you would expect to see anywhere in Fife or anywhere in Scotland. But the minute you go out into the rural areas, things change very significantly. That wee township that I showed you on the road between the Longway, they've got no water, they've got no electricity. The women, part of their daily routine is that the women will walk 5-10 kilometres, fill up a pot with water and carry it in their head back to the village. And that's their water for the day. That's to do them for washing, cleaning, toiletries, everything. And while they're doing that, the men folk very often will go to the markets and barter things like maize straw, etc. They'll barter that to get clothing or to get anything else that they really need. So it's pretty primitive out with the towns and cities in the country.
Okay, thank you, Ramsay. A couple of questions coming from Perthshire. The first one from Brother Martin Gunn. You mentioned Ireland and Scotland. Are there other constitutions involved with the schools?
Yes. In Malawi, you have lodges under the English, Irish and Scottish constitutions. And all three work well together. If there are any needs, then they will come together. Not only that, the adjoining countries, places like Zimbabwe, Zambia, they will assist in any way they can if there is a necessity. But I've got to say that the three constitutions work very, very well together. Some of you might be aware of the project that Grand Lodge were involved in last year in Malawi at the Makandi School, where Grand Lodge paid the bulk of the money to build a brand new block at Makandi School. The province of Glasgow raised a sizable amount of money to do refurbishments to parts of the school, but the District Grand Lodge out there in the United Grand Lodge of England, they subscribed to the money that we subscribed to help get a final total to build the new classrooms at the Makandi School. So everybody works well together. It's good.
A question from someone that's very well known to you, Brother Ronnie Forbes. Ronnie's asking, what is the age range at the school? And once they finish at the school, is there any further education facilities for them?
Yeah. The age range runs from about 3 or 4 years of age up to 18, 19 years of age. And, you know, some of the kids drop out and, you know, anything in between there. A lot of the boys, I say, they try and get into some form of joinery when they leave, but more and more of the youngsters, especially now that we've been pushing the computer project, the youngsters are becoming computer literate. They may be deaf, but by heavens, they know how to handle the computers, and they can do all sorts of things that you and I could do, and they don't really need to hear to do it. So quite a lot of them are coming on by leaps and bounds academically, and they are going on to further education, which is all very encouraging. But the other issue there, of course, is that, you know, that there is further education in Blantyre, but if they want to go further than that, then they've really got to go to Lilongwe, and that in itself presents quite substantial problems. But no, a lot of them are doing very well. They are getting the qualifications to go into further education, and we're absolutely delighted about it. Delighted.
Well, that's good news. Another comment, and I think I can answer this one for you because I would like to publicise something on your behalf. Gerard O'Donnell's asking, can you give regular updates on this project? And I say, well, we actually do in the provincial patter. And Bern, if you've never read the provincial patter from the Provincial Grand Lodge of Ross and Cromarty, if you visit their website, you can download it and you can get onto their mailing list. And our editor is our star guest this evening, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of Masonic insight into it. And going back over the years, there's a lot of good Masonic stories. Brother Green from Lodge Kajaki, our newest lodge, is a comment. He's been involved in a big way helping the children born with defects after Chernobyl. They desperately need toothbrushes and basic sanitation aids for the girls. Are the children okay, such items, or is this something that we could look at as well? And I'm assuming that's for the kids in Malawi.
No, that's an excellent point. And one of the things that we take out with us, as well as the footballs, the volleyballs and all the rest of it, we very often, when we take the medical stuff, we will get stuff like toothbrushes. I mean, you can get into some of the pound shops and all the rest of it, and you can, you know, you can buy a whole heap of these kind of things and take them out, and that's what we do. And things like toothbrushes and the likes, it's great because they're light. One of the problems that you get when you're going out to Malawi is folks, oh, I'll give you this to take, I'll give you that to take. And, you know, you're very restricted with the amount of luggage you can carry. And we've got to try, you know, things like books are just a no-no because they weigh so much. But things like toothbrushes and toiletries are pretty light, so we can take oodles of them, no problem at all. Okay. But all of that is very, very useful.
I think that answers the next question, and it was a question from Bob Potter. Did you take your accordion and join the school band for a couple of numbers? But if you're restricted on your luggage, I'm assuming that's a no.
Correct.
A question from David Bell. Is there any consideration given to training family members in sign language to give them a voice when going home to their villages?
It's something that Modester Gier is very aware of, and it's something that she and the teachers are trying to address. But you've got to understand that the resources that they've got are very, very limited. You know, when they're again, when I was out in February, they were just about on their uppers with food. They had run out. The basic food for the kids is maize. They go through about 8 sacks of maize a week. And one of the brethren who was transporting us around, he immediately said, right, there's only a couple of weeks to the end of this term. I will supply maize. And he turned and he said, Ramsay, can you do anything thereafter? So I got on the phone to our provincial Grand Master, and the problem has been resolved. Money was sent out by the province, and they've now got sufficient food to see them through this term and next term. So they're strapped for resources. And, you know, getting the parents to come into the school is a nightmare for them. Very often those parents, if they can get the kids off to that school because they're deaf and they don't understand them, so get them in there and that's fine. Very often when holiday times come round, some parents will arrive to take the children home and there's wee souls left there with nobody coming to collect them. It's, you know, it brings tears to your eyes. The parents, a lot of them have difficulty in doing normal reading and writing, etc. And trying to get them into the way of sign language is probably quite a task. I know it is something that the staff are very, very aware of, but right now I don't think they've got a programme in place, or if they have, I'm not aware of it.
Okay, thank you, Ramsay. Two questions that come in side by side, one from Lanarkshire and one from Fife and Kinross, that are very similar. Are you still collecting tools? And if any brethren have hand tools, how do we get them to you?
Well, with the pandemic at the moment, it's not very easy. The answer briefly is yes, we are in the process of collecting at the moment. We've got quite a collection in a unit in Inverness. We're just trying to get them sorted out. We're going to get them down to Stirling. The Provincial Grand Secretary in Stirling. Unfortunately, the Haven thing has stopped now. We can't get them over by the Raven Trust. But the Provincial Grand Secretary in Stirling has, well, he's spent all his life in logistics. And he is going to give us a fair bit of assistance to get them from here out to Malawi. I'm not too sure how it's going to happen yet, but he's certainly offered to do it. And he's got the expertise. I mean, he was instrumental there in assisting us to get stuff in from India for the Masonic homes, the PPE equipment and what have you. And he did a fantastic job with that. And I've got every confidence in him that he will manage to get the stuff out. But right now, we're sort of stuck with this COVID thing. We can't do anything. I mean, we can't even get into the unit where the tools are to work on them. And it's so frustrating because they are needing fresh sets of tools. But right now, I honestly don't know what the answer is and how to get tools to us. I just honestly don't know because we kind of move about the country. You're not supposed to go any more than 5 miles. So it's just a bit of a problem. I think what we might do is we'll try and sort out what we have and get that away. And then once we get back to some form of normality, then hopefully we might, we'll see what we need and we might put out an appeal again. The appeal that we did the last day, the boys in Fife were fantastic. They did a tremendous job for us and we will be forever grateful to them. But it just shows, again, it's, you know, here we've got 2 provinces, miles, you know, 200 mile apart, yet the 2 provinces worked hand in glove and the results were tremendous. You know, it never fails to amaze me what Scottish Freemasons are capable of. And if you look at this new Facebook page that we have, that was set up with Dougie Fergie and Jim Ellis, and you just spend 10 minutes looking at all that the Scottish Freemasons are doing, it's absolutely fantastic. It's brilliant. I'm over the moon with it. We're doing so much in so many places, and brethren, every single one of you, so proud of what Scottish Freemasonry is doing at this particular point in time.
Okay, thank you, Grandmaster Mason. The next question, and Bernard, I'm conscious there's lots of posts and comments in here. I'm not going to go through the congratulations and thank yous because there's so many, but I can assure you I'll make sure the Grandmaster Mason does see them. The next question comes from Bob. There's a few Bobs out there, so I'm not sure which Bob it is. And do you have an idea of what the basic cost of keeping the school going per year? And is there any government help at all?
Right. The quick answer to the last bit of the question is there. I honestly haven't a clue what the annual budget is. But what I can tell you is that the school was built by the Roman Catholic Church in Holland. They set up an agreement between themselves. They saw the problem of deaf children, and they offered to build the facility. And the deal was that they would cover the capital costs of the school if the Malawian government would cover the revenue costs thereafter. Well, I've got to say that the Catholic Church they've done their part. They've picked up the bill, they've done the business, and they continue to do the business with some of the fabric of the building. But unfortunately, the Malawian government have not kept their part of the bargain. We had almost a 2-year period where the only member of staff that was getting paid was the woodwork teacher, because we were paying him. The Malawian government were not paying the teachers, and they were literally staying at the school, and they were being fed at the school. And that was the existence that they had. I think it's improved a wee bit now, and there should be government money going into the school. But, you know, from the very fact that, you know, the numbers vary from, I think the smallest we've had is 120 children, and at the moment there's 150. And with 150, it's taken 8 sacks of maize a week to feed them. Now, they ran out of food. They had no food. And yet the government weren't stepping in to assist. And if we hadn't stepped in twice now, I honestly don't know what would have happened. They would possibly have gone to some of the other benefactors that they have, and hopefully that would have been sorted. But on the 2 occasions I know of, we've managed to sort the problem out for them. But the flow of money from government is not good. Not good.
Thank you, Ramsay. The next questions, I think, is looking more at you as a person and as an individual, and I think it's a very interesting question, but you can plead the fifth if you so desire. And it's from Past Master Finlay Ross of the Weems. Gordon, can you ask Ramsay, when he first went out to Malawi, what was his initial thoughts on the country? I know I've been to West Africa twice, and I was shocked at how they lived and what they lived on.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely, I couldn't agree more. It's, I've been out so often now to Malawi that it's, you know, I can accept the situation, but it was a total culture shock the first time we went out. You know, especially when we were driving from the long way down to Blantyre, and we were stopping off and seeing the fishermen out there, and you know, they're catching next to nothing. Oh, it's just unbelievable. The poverty is unbelievable. But as I said earlier, in the towns and cities like Lilongwe, Blantyre, a lot of the people are working away, doing things that you and I would do in this country. But, you know, you never fail to get shocked at times. One morning, I think it was 2011, when we were out in 2011, we actually had electricity one morning, and we had the news on, the Malawian news. And this is without a word of a lie. The announcer stated that the Malawian government have just announced that they can no longer afford the police service. And as and from today, the police service will be responsible for generating their own income. And we looked at each other, we couldn't believe what we were hearing. Well, I can tell you, brethren, within a couple of hours, we were actually out on the road. And there were roadblocks, you were getting stopped, you were getting questioned, you were getting fined. You know, it's just quite incredible. And that situation hasn't really got too much better ever since then. I think there's money going into it now, but there's still, it's unbelievable, unbelievable.
Thank you, Ramsay. Bern, just before I round up, I would just like to welcome a brother who's here with us this evening from the Grand Lodge of Texas, Brother Paul Underwood, who's the Most Worshipful Grand Master of Texas. So the Lodge Hope of Karachi, we're actually thrice blessed this evening. We've got the Most Worshipful Grand Master Mason of the Grand Lodge of Scotland, we've got the Most Worshipful Grand Master of Texas, and we've got the past Grand Master of Alberta.
Welcome, boys.
So I know two of them are good Scotsmen. Paul Underwood maybe sounds like he may descend from our brethren down south, but it's something that I will speak to Paul offline with. But it's a great pleasure for our little lodge in Fife and Kinross to have three Grand Masters in our presence this evening. With that, Right Most Worshipful Grand Master Mason, Brother William Ramsay McGhee, on behalf of the members of the Lodge Hope of Karachi and all our visitors, can I thank you once again for coming along this evening and giving us a very inspirational talk. And as you said at the beginning, it's maybe slightly different from what we've seen at the presentations from the Lodge Hope of Karachi over the last 10 weeks. But it's certainly a very important part of what we do as Freemasonry, and it's brought to life what you and your province have done, inspiring charity, one of our tenants, at home and abroad. And for that, I give you my personal thanks as well. Bren, as usual, a couple of announcements. Next week, our speaker will be Brother Bob Cooper, and he's going to talk about Robert Burns, the Freemason, and particularly about Burns as a Freemason, not necessarily as Burns as a poet. The History and Heritage Group, they've been really nice to me, Bren. I'm coming up to have a significant birthday on the 11th of June. Presents are welcome. Thank you, Dad. You're still here. But that evening, they will have the first of a series of presentations being presented by the History and Heritage Group of the Grand Lodge of Scotland. And the first 5 presentations will focus on 5 of our oldest lodges under our constitution, and it will start with a presentation about Mother Kilwinning. Information can be found on the Scottish Freemasons pages, and I will share that also on the Lodge Hope of Karachi pages. But Brian, one of the things, as I said at the beginning of the session this evening, one of the things that they'd be looking for is that you put your name and your lodge number. And again, that's so they can have a good understanding of where the Bren are coming from across not just our provinces, but overseas, to hear these fantastic stories about basically the birth of Freemasonry and where it came from and from where it spread around the world. So Ramsay, once again, thank you. Bren, I'm going to unmute you all. You can say your own personal thank yous, and I'll give you about 20 to 30 seconds to do so, and then I'll give you our normal 5-second countdown before I switch the meeting off, and the meeting will be downloaded later on this evening. There you go, Bren.
Thank you, Ramsay.
Thank you, Ramsay.
Thanks, Ramsay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you, Ramsay.
Thank you, Ramsay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramsay.
Thank you.
Excellent evening, Ramsay. Thank you. It was great.
Ramsay, absolutely heartening.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Excellent, Ramsay. Makes me so proud and humble
being a Freemason. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ramsay. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you very much indeed.
Good job.
You're all being shy this evening, Bern. Come on, don't be shy.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Ramsay, for a wonderful.
Don't expect a present, Gordon.
Thank you very much, Master Dunham. Anything with a Russian label will be much appreciated.
Thanks, Gordon. Thanks, boss.
Gordon, thanks very much.
Cracking haircut, Ronnie.
Good night.
Yeah. Lockdown haircut.
You do that yourself, Ronnie?
Of course I did.
Good for you. You've got a great future.
Didn't he use a mirror?
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right then, Brian, thank you. I'll
night.
give you 5,
Cheers, brother.
4,
Thanks again.
3, 2,
Good night, everybody. Good night.
1.
Good night, everybody.
Stay safe.
Thank you, Brian. See you next week.